Well,
because
that's a business decision between the seller and the agent. I'm not a fan personally, but there are times when it can work. It's really just a decision you need to make with the seller, I think, and as a business model that may work for you or not.
well, here's why I'm bringing it up.
Okay.
So everything in reading, because there's nothing out there really that says, here's what range pricing is. I mean, it's not in Real Estate 101. So I've been Googling it, seeing what different people's thoughts are. And it seems to be a pricing tool that's used when an agent is really not familiar with a community and they don't really know how to price a house appropriately. So they throw range pricing on it, which
I think that's not completely accurate. I think that is used that way sometimes, but quite often it is because they may disagree with the seller on the price, so that they go in a range, because don't forget, it goes in MLS at the low end of the range.
Right.
And then
right.
the very first part of your remarks should state what the range is, so that everybody has an idea of that.
Okay.
But it really doesn't benefit the seller to do a range price, because I've never in my 25 years in real estate seen someone come in at the top end of the range. If it's up for sale from 250 to 275, they're going to come in usually at 250 unless there's some qualifying reason to come in higher.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, why don't you just list it at 275 if it's worth it?
Well, I'm with you.
So,
well, and so I do know that some of the KW agents use range pricing, and I'm not sure why they do it, other than, what is their purpose?
Yeah, it's their business model. And I'm not going to ever stop you from doing business like that if it's not illegal. Am I a fan? No, I'm not.
Doesn't really make a lot of sense. If you've done your homework, then you would know the value of the home.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, but sometimes, okay, what if you have a seller and they say, I will only list this property with you if you do range pricing. You explain the reasons why it's probably not ideal, and they still say, I want to do it. I would probably take the listing like that. With the caveat that if we don't have an offer within, 1 week or 2 weeks, we're going to reduce it. We're going to adjust the price to a fixed amount.
Okay. Well, I always try not to do that. I try to have enough statistics for my clients that they know that I'm not just making up a number, but I actually achieved that number by some statistic somewhere. So
correct, exactly. So so it's obviously not your business model to do that. And I'm 100% behind you.
Pretty weird.
Yeah, it's just a choice.
Yeah. So it came up twice in the same day for me, and that's like, who and why?
And honestly, mostly weaker agents will use that strategy versus strong agents. But it's who are we to judge, on that.
Yeah, I think that I've seen it used. I know agents who it's always how they price. It is their pricing strategy. It's how they work all the time. I think what's important is to let the buyer be really aware. So that's why it has to be put in there as range pricing. But remember, the public only sees that low price. They don't see the comment that it's range priced. So it is always, you need to check that and make sure you know it so that you can inform your buyer when you're out there, this is what's going on. So that they're not surprised by that, because that can then cause some real heartache for them when they're taken by surprise. And they don't necessarily notice or know what range pricing is. They don't understand that.
Well, I didn't understand it. I still, who would decide on that model? It's like, well, let me make up a price and throw it on the wall and see if it sticks. That's kind of how it feels. So
it's kind of how it is. Yeah. Hey, I want to touch on something that Dan, or I don't mean to cut you off. Was that pretty much your question? Or?
Yeah, that was it. Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just jumped on. Dan had asked me, Dan, can I bring up the text that you sent to me? Okay. Dan had texted me asking about protocol. If an agent is in a home showing it, can they lock the door and keep other agents out? I said, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, that is my business practice. When I'm in a home, I always lock the door behind me. And I wait courteously if I'm the next agent in line till the other agent exits the property.
Agreed.
Also, make sure you don't hand the key off. Make sure you secure the key box. The second agent should then open the key box. Otherwise, we've invalidated our entire key box system by
Yeah.
doing that.
Mhm.
So yeah, please do make that your standard practice.
Yeah, that question came about because an associate broker at another small independent is the sister-in-law to one of the PC agents, and that argument was sparked the other night. So he called me today and asked me that question. I told him absolutely.
Mhm.
And she says, you can't do that, it's against the law. And I told her, no, it's actually, I think it's an NAR
It's the law,
standard
yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
And I just wanted, I ask you these things just to clarify, make sure nothing's changed
Mhm.
since the last time we talked, but I'm glad we brought it back up because that's going to keep you safe and out of harm's way.
I always did it from a safety
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
You know, especially back when the foreclosure craziness was on
Mhm.
and houses. Once I was sure that the house didn't have anybody already in it,
Mhm.
I wanted to make sure nobody else arrived uninvited. You know,
Yeah.
so yes.
I don't want a surprise that when I'm showing. I don't want anybody else coming behind me. I don't want, and I always keep a key in my hand too. I'm sure you all do that as well, because I've almost locked myself out in backyards or sheds or things like that.
Mhm.
And I also know the way out. So if I need to run out fast, I can. So.
Well, speaking of safety, just to go
Yeah.
about that, the good idea is when you're showing a house is to always let your client walk into the room and them not be behind you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You are always letting them in and into the room, and you can wait at the doorway, whatever that is, and that's another
Mhm.
safe practice.
I do have an agent that I'm familiar with that does not go through the house with the client if the house is vacant. She won't go through the house, and which I find odd. I just want to hear what my clients' reactions are when they're, what do they say about that kitchen, or what do they think about that floor plan? But she says she stays at the door so she can watch what's going on at that door and allows the client to go through the house by themselves, which
Does she then go back through and secure the property, because that she's liable for that if they open a door or window and or leave a light on.
Yeah.
So I understand that. My thing is that if you're that afraid of your client, you probably shouldn't be taking them out anyway. You should have some comfort with them. Maybe have met them in the office. We can always take an ID. If you go to the front desk here or any of our offices, ask them to keep a copy of your client's ID. Say it's our standard of practice, which maybe we should make it our standard of practice. Do that. Make sure that somebody knows where you are, who you're with, and then, God forbid, something happens. We can identify that person. But Dan, yes, sir.
On the other side of this, with the other agents, I want to go back to that. Do not let another agent pressure you into bending MLS and or NAR standard.
No.
Especially like you're talking about the lockbox thing. I have been pressured by other agents just to hand over the key to them and that they'll lock up. Absolutely not. You are liable for the lockbox timestamp through the time that key gets put back in. So you have to hand that key off, and someone else does something in that house, you could be held liable for it. So don't let any agent bully you.
Yeah, we just fined someone $1,000 for that violation. And
Why I brought it up.
Yeah.
But on what premise? I mean, to explain that a little bit more. I just want to hear about that.
It's failure to secure a property. When you open that key box, you have taken the responsibility for that property into your hands. By handing a key off to another agent without securing the property, you have invalidated the key box system. And basically, you don't even know if they're an agent. You just handed the key off to somebody. And the integrity of the entire key box system is at risk.
And so how did you get involved? Hang on a minute. Hold on, it's Frank. Hey, I'm on the broker call right now. Can I call you back? You okay? Okay. All right. Okay. Say hi to Frank.
Hi, Frank.
Hi, Frank.
Hi, Frank.
Everybody said hi. Bye. He's
Okay.
out doing my work for me. What can I say? I'm not complaining.
So how did we
No.
know about that?
How did you get involved in that situation?
Complained.
Homeowner.
The homeowner complained. They heard about it from somebody. I'm not sure. Maybe their own agent. I don't know. But they filed a complaint.
Interesting. Yeah.
And
I mean,
the first agent was the one that got fined, not the second agent who actually violated it as well, because they were not at risk for securing the property, if that makes sense. Were they guilty? Yeah, but they weren't the ones liable for the problem.
And our homeowners have cameras in their houses and everything else, so
Yeah.
they can see what
Yeah.
you're doing when you show a house.
Yeah, be
Yeah,
very cautious.
And to that point, Wendy, that's a really good point. This is last year, I was one of my listings, very creative, talented woman. And I was holding open house and waited until, we'd had her, I usually give them a call about an hour later and walk through, here was our experience today. And here's how many clients we had come in and, go through. And she said, so who was that lady that stayed for half an hour? The one in the red jacket.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think that somehow if the new agents realize that probably more often than they can imagine, they are on camera. My house is full of cameras. And the reason that we did this is because I am in my office. You can see my office. I have copies of contracts in those file drawers behind me. And if anyone ever broke in this house, that stuff's here and I'm responsible to secure that. So there's a camera right up there. And, in several places of this house, you can take a shower in your privacy, but people really do have a lot of cameras in their homes these days. And there are occasionally some comments that agents make that should rather be held till they're outside.
Well, or negotiating your price and terms out in front of the house when they have a Ring doorbell. Your client has just given up all of their negotiation strategy.
Yes.
Immediately.
Yes. Yep. Or really insulted a homeowner, and it doesn't matter, oh, I could get this house for 20,000 less. I know this guy's a dummy. I mean, really, really be careful with it. So sorry, I feel like I'm hogging your session here.
That's okay. That's what we're here for. Again, that's something in your buyer consultation. You have that discussion about, first of all, just buyer etiquette. You don't talk badly about a house or a person while you're in that home or even close to it. And also about the cameras and situation, respective property, especially now with COVID, is you really need to follow the seller's instructions on how you show.
Yes.
One thing I heard in our own office the other day, an agent making fun of a seller's requirements, and that's really out of line for us. You don't have to show that property if you disagree with the way the seller wants it shown, but you do need to respect their wishes if you do choose to show it.
I would like to take just a second to brag about my husband, who fired a prospective buyer because they were having conversations about different houses and whatever the conversations were. And this gentleman had his 2 beers in his pocket that he was having during his lunch, but he made some remarks that were Frank considered bias. And Frank fired him.
Good.
I'm probably not the agent for you. I'm probably not the best match.
Yeah.
And so I was very proud of him for, number 1, doing it. Number 2, for telling me about it. You can't be known as a client that, that cultivates that kind of attitude with a client. So
no. And we all need to stop that.
Don't bring it up because he'll be embarrassed. So, he doesn't like me to share his business, but I thought that was really an admirable thing that he did.
It is.
Well, he's sort of on this call already now, so kind of.
Well,
yeah. It looks like we have a question here over in the chat. Can you accept an offer while a house is in coming soon?
Yes. But you need to immediately take it out of coming soon within 1 business day. It needs to go into active and then into active contingent, or just into active contingent.
So yes, while it is in that coming soon status, the thing that you cannot do is you cannot advertise it to the public in any way, shape, or form in that coming soon. When it goes out, agents can see it in the coming soon in the MLS, but the public cannot see it in that status. So yeah, you can tell your clients about a house that you saw in coming soon, and you can make arrangements to show it if the seller is ready to show it. And
you can have a sign up.
And you can make an offer on it. Then the seller's agent has to immediately turn it active, because now the status of that, or active contingent, because that's changed now if the offer is accepted.
Yeah. I think, you know, the whole name of this clear cooperation, it's neither clear nor cooperative necessarily. So I think it's a little bit of a misnomer, but
I'll give you some of the background that I learned about this clear cooperation policy and why this became a big deal. There was a very, very large brokerage in the California area that would hold back up to 50% of their listings and not put them out in the MLS. They would privately advertise them. And so that became a problem with agents not having access to a huge portion of listings that were out there. So it, you know, of course, that's all it takes is one. And so there was complaints about the way that brokerage was doing business, and they were a huge brokerage. And we're talking a lot of listings in a very competitive market that were being purposely held back from the market. So that's what set off this firestorm.
right. I just wish they'd allow us to do it more at a local level versus a national level, because it really wasn't a problem in our marketplace, and we're forced to contend with the ruling.
So though I did hear one thing that kind of sounded a little blurry. You said you cannot put a sign up, correct?
You can put a sign up, yes.
You can't have a coming soon sign rider
You can, yes.
on the ground as long as it has coming soon underneath it.
Correct, but you have to make sure that you then have it in as coming soon in MLS.
Within the
Otherwise, it's a
21 day
violation.
time frame only.
Up to 21 days.
And you can accept showings.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could show it during coming soon.
You can. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It's changed a little bit since the very beginning when we first talked about it. The rules, it's really broadened out a little bit about what you can and can't do during coming soon.
So you can show the property, you can put the sign in the ground, but you can't advertise it. But
Can't
that's
advertise
advertising.
it. Yeah.
But that is advertising it.
It is advertising, and it is advertising to the public, because if you drive by, you see the sign, which is where I have the biggest heartburn over it. It's not consistent.
So this thing, it doesn't make sense. I mean,
No.
it's like it's contradicting itself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, and a realtor telling their clients about it is also advertising.
yeah.
Right.
So,
And
so
you can't
I mean,
speak about it. Yeah, technically, yeah.
there's no safe spot in this whole situation.
No.
So
The
how do
only
we handle
safe
that?
spot is that make sure that you put it in MLS as coming soon, and then you are slightly protected, if that makes sense. When you're going to really run into problems is if you don't have it in, if you have it as exempt delay or exempt or delayed, one or the other, that's where you're going to run into trouble. Then you can't do a sign or any type of advertising, even talking about it.
Almost sounds like you're better off just not doing coming soon at all.
Yeah. And ideally that is the best way, but sometimes it's not possible.
So I have one that I came across just in the last few days, and I kind of wanted to put it out there to the group and see what you thought, and we'll put it to Lisa too, since the DP is sitting right next to me. So I had a call from an agent, and the property's been under contract twice and now about to go under contract for the third time. And both previous buyers had home inspections, and she wanted to know whether because the new buyer, the third buyer, wants the previous two buyers' inspections. So what's the deal with that? Can you turn them over? Well, let's have a discussion before she chimes in and tells us. What's the deal? What do you guys feel about that? You know, how do you feel?
Those inspections are owned by the previous people who made the offer on the property, not by the other agent. However, information that was found in those inspections needs to be disclosed, does it not?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you also share that inspection with the seller. So now the seller has that inspection. And so he has the right to share it, does he not? Help me here.
Not necessarily. They may, if they do choose to share it, first of all, there needs to be some disclaimers, and you must redact any information that could identify the buyer from that inspection report. And there's a lot of it in there. You'd be surprised at how much information on the buyer there could be in there. And then you also need to, if you're the buyer's agent, you might better make sure you have some kind of disclosure that shows that, let them know that that was for that period of time only, and things could have happened since that report. So, you know, again, to save $400, it's not necessarily worth it. It's up to the client. But if you do represent the seller, make sure that if you are disclosing that information, that you redact any information from the buyer.
Your seller should be automatically updating their SPUDs with any new information that they got from home inspections anyway, or if they took care of something that was found on that, they should be updating their SPDS. And yeah, my counsel to the question was then the buyer's agent needs to have their client sign something that says, hey, I'm relying on the previous home inspection, and I've been counseled to get my own home inspection, but I am choosing to rely on a previous home inspection. That way they can't come back to you as the buyer's agent and say, well, you didn't tell me I should have my own inspection. You just gave me these, got these reports for me.
When I take it one step further on the Binzer, you need to make sure they initial on the top of page 2 that says that they did not have a home inspection, because they did not.
Oh, and it's on the bottom of page.
I think it's on top of page 2 now.
No, it's on the bottom now. That when
Was
the
it-
new
well, when they did
Binzer-
when they revised it, I
Yeah.
haven't looked at that.
By the way,
one.
there's a revision on the Binzer. Did everybody see that? That came out, what, June 1st?
Yeah.
And now
we talked
it's
about it, yeah.
much more room on there now. And a
Yeah.
couple things
Doesn't
moved
mean you
around.
need to fill it up, though.
I'm sorry, what?
It doesn't mean you need to fill up the space.
No, it doesn't.
I was so disheartened when that came out. It's like we got rid of that extra page 2 years ago, and now they put it back in. It's like, you guys are going to kill me. You're going to kill me. Yeah, it's not supposed to be a laundry list.
No, you don't have to fill up the whole space on page
And now
1.
people will. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
The other good thing that came out of the form revision that we talked about yesterday briefly is on the HOA form, it now specifically tells the seller, do not touch page 3. That is the buyer's choice to decide, what they would like to pay for or have you pay for. And then you get to acknowledge whether or not you do agree with that. We were having sellers fill out page 3 of that all the
Yeah.
time.
Make some choices for
Yeah.
the buyer at a time.
Yeah.
Simplify that procedure.
And then the other change was on the counteroffer form. It just updated the verbiage so that it matched the contract.
Mhm.
Trying to think of anything else coming up. There's a couple other forms that are going to be revised, but they're not out for public consumption yet. So,
Yeah, next revisions won't come out till the fall, right?
Yep.
Of anything. Thankfully, AAR only sends out revisions twice a year, and that makes our life twice or three times a year.
Mhm.
So at least we're not being inundated on a monthly basis with something new that we have to learn.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We can't keep track of what we do know already, right?
So I have another question for you guys. This one came up for me. So the seller's agent gets news from a source that the buyer is not going to be able to close. It doesn't come from the buyer or the buyer's agent. It comes from some other party to this transaction, that the buyer's loan is not going to close, that there is a problem. And they are not getting any word from the buyer about this. Does the seller have any recourse at that point once they have that information?
Yeah, they have the right to ask for an LSU.
Okay. What else?
Also,
What else?
Why
Yeah,
would
what
you
else?
believe somebody that's just telling you something? I'd need some kind of something to substantiate that.
So what if in this particular case, they got that from the buyer's lender? They heard from the buyer's lender that the buyer was, and yet we're not hearing anything yet from the buyer or the buyer's agent. They heard from the buyer's lender that there was a problem.
Whoa.
Yeah. But they now have that piece of information. So now what?
So where
How
are
do
we at
they
in the
bet-
contract process?
What?
So where are we at in the contract process?
They're probably maybe a week or so out from close.
and it doesn't even matter where you are in the contract process for that informational piece. As an agent, the listing agent, you have to disclose that to your party. That the buyer, that you have information that may prohibit the buyer from closing.
So once you become party to that information, you have to share that. And then what they wanted to do at this particular case is the seller's like, well, what can we do about this? They're not telling us, and are we supposed to just sit around here for the next week and wait until they finally get around to telling us that?
That's a presumptive breach.
Yeah, so there are some choices your seller has, and it's something called either a presumptive or an anticipatory breach.
Mhm.
We anticipate you breaching this contract through information we have found that has come to us, and we can send you over a cure notice and move this process along so that maybe your seller doesn't have to sit and wait for another week to 10 days.
Yeah.
But can find out what the heck's going on now and
Mhm.
make that happen. So always want to talk to, one of us, if you're going to write a cure notice, especially if it's going to be for the first time that you're going to put one of those pen to paper, and we can help you make sure that that gets you what you want to have happen in that particular transaction.
So if you're if you're outside of the 10-day, the 3-day, because you have the unfulfilled loan contingency, which is 3 days prior, you have to have the clear to close in place.
I'm talking about the end of the contract term? Okay.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
before that, you can say you have an anticipatory breach, meaning if your lender's saying you're not going to qualify, there's no way in hell this is going to happen, you can cure
Mhm.
right then and there and say, hey, you need to prove that you can close
Right.
on.
Then they have 3 days to remove that cure, or the seller could then cancel.
So at that point, what could a buyer do? A buyer could come back you could cure them for an anticipatory breach, and a buyer could come back with an LSU that says we've cleared up the problem.
Or cash, or
Whatever,
Yeah.
but they've got to give you something. And this is, if you're representing the seller, you're doing great in your representation, as you're not waiting until 3 days prior to close of escrow and finding out loan docs are there, when 6-7 days ago you could have said, hey, something's gone wrong here, let's fix this. Or
Mhm.
so yeah, it gives you an opportunity to get in there and make that happen beforehand.
Yeah, get back on the market if you need to.
Yeah, because then if they don't give you loan docs 3 days beforehand, then you cure them, and then you got to wait another 3 days before you can get that house back on the market. So
And those are the phone calls I get quite often, is they don't feel like their agent represented them properly, because they're like, if the agent heard about this and didn't let me know, basically it cost me a week plus, anxiety and there's all kinds of things they'll come up with. But, and it's difficult to defend you all at that point if you did have that information. Of course, I will do my best to do that, but do the right thing. If you know it's not going to close, and you can help your client. Bad news is always bad news, no matter when you deliver it. So just deliver it, do it properly, and get that thing back on the market. And in that situation, the buyer would get their earnest money back, because
Yeah,
they don't qualify for their loan.
I was going to ask that question because sometimes you're going to get a seller going, well, I want to keep the earnest money. How do we make that happen?
Right. Well, because in truth, the buyer should then deliver you an inability to qualify for the loan, and then they cancel that way.
I'm sitting here trying to put myself in the buyer's shoes. And so I'm the buyer.
Right.
And first of all, I'm really mad at my lender for sharing that information. So I will make sure everybody I know never uses that lender.
So the lender's the one that actually did the right thing. Yeah.
Well, that's not, there some fiduciary responsibility that should be happening there? And who gives that lender permission to give that information to a seller? And how bad is that buyer inflamed at this point? Does that constitute breach of contract in about 10 different ways?
No, not necessarily. When the buyer signs the pre-qualification form, it's giving the lender the right to disperse some information about that loan. What the lender did was inform, the same thing that you should do as an agent, is inform if something's going to keep someone from being able to close, that information needs to be disclosed. Did they do it by the right channels? Probably not. But we don't know if they also told the other agent, and the other agent and buyer said, we're not disclosing that. The lender then is obligated to disclose that information. I think that's where you get into some gray areas. The buyer's agent was absolutely liable for not disclosing information that would prohibit the buyer from being able to close. That's a material fact. All they had to do is even make a phone call and say, hey, we have some issues, we're trying to resolve them, can you give us a couple more days? That's all they had to do, but they chose to not be honest, and there's where the rub was.
That's ugly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody likes doing a cure notice. We don't love those, and we shouldn't throw them around like,
So they don't bother
willy-nilly.
me.
But
To me, they're just like a gentle nudge to get back on track.
Yeah.
People can use them in all different ways.
I think when you're sending out the cure notice, it's a gentle nudge. When you receive one, you feel like you've been stabbed.
But see, I think it's all in how you present it. I always call the agent and say, listen, I'm submitting the cure notice because we've got to keep within the contract guidelines.
But that's that communication
Right.
piece,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
having really, really strong communication with you and them, and not having a cure notice have you ever had one just show up in your email and you're like, whoa.
Right.
Yeah.
And when it does happen, I feel bad because I didn't do my job.
Yeah.
If I get a cure notice, it's on me, not on them.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got a cure notice that actually kept me from having to give the buyer's earnest money or pay the buyer's earnest money, because the cure notice reset a clock that I was able to execute on our behalf and get the earnest money back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's just having a higher than average understanding of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
Shame on me for missing a deadline, because it just happened during a pandemic shift.
No good excuse.
There was no good excuse, but we found a rabbit hole and we ran out of it.
Yeah, you got lucky.
I did, but I was fully prepared to pay a $3,000 earnest money that I could have lost my client by not paying attention to timeline.
Yeah, I've had to make agents pay earnest money recently on things that they've either missed a Binzer date or other things, and the company's not going to do that if you blatantly disregard a date or timeline. We'll protect you in other ways, but if it's your fault, I'm going to make you pay for that. It's the only way people learn from that, and yeah, it's not fun to ask that. I hate that. Not a fun part of my job. He's not really laughing at me. I think he's laughing at me.
So I'm going to do a shameless plug for myself. Lisa has forced me to do my first teaching here, and that's coming up next week. I think Wednesday next week, the 10th,
Yeah.
whatever day, and I think that's Wednesday, from 1 to 3. And we're going to really talk about what's required. I think I called it compliance. Where's the fun in that?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to just really talk about what you need in your broker's file, your file, to be compliant. And hopefully from that, you will learn a great deal about what it is that we're looking for, so that you don't end up having to redo things, fix things. And we can take that write checks. We can take that hassle out of, remove that frustration. So it should be fun. It'll be the first time I'm going to teach on Zoom. I'm used to standing in front of a room and getting that energy. So hopefully some of you will show up and bring me some of that energy that day.
I'll heckle you.
Oh, you're going to heckle me.
I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
Ask a question that I'm sure has been asked a million times. Are agents free to bring clients into the office conference rooms now?
Yes, they are. They
Okay.
are. We do ask you to sanitize the room when you leave, or ask the staff to help you with that. You absolutely are allowed to bring clients into the office.
Okay. All right.
Come and go at your comfort. We had a post on Facebook earlier today of an agent of a different market center that put up there and got a lot of heat back from them, saying no precautions, no masks, no distancing. We do ask that you guys do follow CDC guidelines and keep yourselves and the staff as well as other agents as safe as possible. If you don't feel comfortable coming into the office, then don't. If you do and you just want some precaution, let us know. We'll do what we can to help you out. If you want us to have your client sitting there waiting in the conference room waiting for you at a distance, then let us know. Caitlin's been awesome about making sure we facilitate all that, as well as our other market centers, both Sierra Vista and the East Side. So communicate with us, guys, we'll help you out, but come and go at your comfort levels. Just please, wash your hands, cough in your elbow.
Right. And yeah, if you're sick, don't come in, please. And we don't want any type of any kind of spread of anything at this point, especially. There's sanitizer throughout the offices. I have individual packets of it in my office if somebody needs some. Just take care of each other.
I've been saying that for 20 years. I don't go out when I'm sick. Come on, it's common sense, isn't it?
It is common courtesy and common sense. And I think that's where we need to get back to, is there's no deal that's so important that you need to infect other people.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, maybe there is, but depends. How many millions could it be?
Mm-hmm. Well, and we also, part of our culture is helping each other. And if you are sick or are not comfortable going into the office, then reach out to one of us that are there, and we'll help you. We'll meet with your client, get it something signed if you need it, and get it back to you.
I'm going to remember you said that. So sometime when I have a nasty one, I'll give you a call. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Our thing is we only work with nice people. That's all. That's what we say. We
Being
only work
fair.
with nice people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Because I seem to get to talk to the ones that aren't as pleasant.
Yeah. I'll try not to give any of those people to you or Wendy.
That's my job. I don't mind at all. It was nice to see Donna's smiling face. I haven't seen you in a while. I mean, how are you doing now? Last time I saw you, your back was hurt.
Yeah. No, I've been sick for 3 weeks and I'm on the mend now.
Oh my gosh.
I've been virtually locked in my house, sleeping majority of the time, but I'm better. I just have a raspy voice.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm glad you're feeling better. And
Yeah.
let us know if we can help in any way, okay?
I will. It was not Rona, so
Well, that's a good thing. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I'm good. I'm happy to be back in and getting involved.
Yeah, I'm glad to see your face.
Thanks.
Got a couple of quiet ones today. Ricky, you're very quiet today. I'm going to call you out.
I'm always quiet. Don't
I
take it.
know, that's why I said, yeah. You are always quiet. You have anything, any problems, anything we can help you with?
No, I think Dan does a pretty good job for me on that route. I've been using him pretty heavily.
Okay. Leah?
Yeah, can you, I know that you can, like Dan was saying, when you send a cure notice, it resets the clock. Can you remind me how that works? And is it like whenever, any kind of cure notice, or just cure notices regarding particular aspects or processes of it?
Anytime a contract timeline is breached, it can be for the delivery of the spuds, the cure, it can be something as significant as, as a date that was missed, or Binzer or something, anything at all that was not done on time, you can cure for. And I start the process early, which I know a lot of people may find offensive, but I communicate well with others. If they don't even deliver the spuds within the time period, I will call them and say, I'm going to, just to keep us on timeline, I'm going to deliver a cure notice so that you remind the sellers to get me the spuds within the next couple of days. And also then it gives you the timeline allowance to then cancel. If you don't deliver that cure, you cannot cancel, just based on them missing a date. You have to give the other party a chance to fix it.
So a missed date is a potential breach
It
of the
is.
contract. It is not an automatic breach of the
No.
contract. Not until we cure them, and then they don't respond to the cure within the time period. Now we have a breach of contract.
Mhm.
But I have never used have you ever had anybody use a cure notice? Do we have somebody making
Amanda, can you mute, please? Thank you.
a cure notice for a Binzer?
Yeah, you can, like, yeah, we don't usually cure on a Binzer because it's
It
automatic.
automatically has its time frames in it, and
Yeah.
it automatically has some things in it that says if you didn't get a response in this time frame, that means this.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ones you wouldn't use
Yeah,
it
we
for.
don't cure for that.
But
we did say that.
spuds, insurance history, all of those things. An LSU, 10 days. If they're not giving you information, I want to know why the buyer's dragging his feet and not getting involved with his lender. All of those things. So.
And those are all red flags. If from the very beginning of the contract dates are missed, it's setting you up for failure. That's a really good indication of how the other agent's going to conduct their business. And you can tell a lot by that. It doesn't usually get better. It usually gets worse.
But yes, you're right. It does open up the window again. So if we get to the 5th day and I haven't received spuds by, I think it's 5 days. Yes, I speaking. So 3 days. I'm sorry, 3. They had to do that with the insurance
They change it all
thing
the time. I know,
and
yeah.
had to make those 2 different dates. So 3rd day, you didn't get it. You send over a
On
cure
the
notice.
4th day.
They now have an additional 3
3
days.
days.
You did open up that window to give them the time to do that. But that is the way you have to do that, because that's the only way we can go into breach.
Yeah. So then on day day 7, you haven't heard back, then the buyer could, or seller, in that situation, be the buyer could cancel the contract and walk away before they even do $1 for inspections or anything. Makes
I would
sense?
say the largest percentage of cures we see are at the end of the transaction though.
Yeah,
Around, let's get this thing closed, let's get the repairs, done,
yeah.
that sort of, so it's usually tends to be at the end.
Yeah, the
of
CD wasn't delivered on time,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Crickets.
Hey, this is Veronica. I have a question about MLS. I've noticed some of our agents have some pretty big wrong information in MLS. And I feel like I always, no matter what company someone's with, I always call the agent to let them know.
Mhm.
And there's this one in particular that our Keller Williams agent has not changed the mistake. And I'm not one to report people to MLS. Do you want us to tell you, how many times do you want us to tell an agent, hey, just
One
a friendly
time.
heads up?
One time.
And then
at that
you
point,
or
you tell
MLS?
me- You can then tell me if you want, or on the actual MLS listing, you can report it. It's not, the agent doesn't get penalized for that. Usually Andrew or somebody there will call me and say, hey, this is the third time this agent has done the information incorrectly. You may want to work on training this agent or something like that. So it's not,
Okay, well, I felt it was.
it's you. The agent doesn't get notified that you've reported them. It's just a mechanism to make sure our integrity of our data is intact.
Okay, I felt like it was overstepping, especially if it's someone in-house, but I'm like, okay, how many times do you give someone an opportunity to say there's no pool when they advertise a pool and there is no pool?
Yeah, and if Veronica can text me with that information, I will take care of that, or you can just report it and the MLS will take care of it.
Okay.
I think if you've
Thank
taken
you.
the effort to notify the agent and they don't correct it, it's on them at that point, not your problem.
Okay, because I thought they did implement fines after a while.
They will, but it's not, and you've got to do something pretty bad.
Or you've got to be a repeat offender of
Mhm.
multiple times.
Yeah, and again, I'm on that committee, so what
Okay.
happens is, I cringe when it's one of our agents. It's like, oh my God. I have to excuse myself from the room, and that's embarrassing in itself. But when it's a repeat offender, then they will get a fine at some point. Usually it's fairly insignificant at the beginning, maybe $50 or something. Just something to get them to wake up and pay attention. It can be more
Okay.
significant.
And what I hear from our agents is, oh, I'll get my admin to do that on Monday. I'm like, well, I'm telling you on Friday, this is
Yeah.
kind of an immediate thing you want to fix and not wait a few days. Any of us can go into MLS and check or uncheck a box. So
Correct.
I don't know. I try to do the right thing and then I feel like I'm wasting my time.
The other thing is, having your admin do it or miss it is not an excuse with the standards committee, just so you know. You're responsible for your own data. So if they're using that as an excuse, it's not valid in my eyes. They should immediately call their admin or take care of it themselves right at that moment. If you're taking the time to bring it to their attention.
It's happened a couple times. I don't know if you want to bring it up in a future meeting since there's just a limited amount of people on this call, but that might help everybody stay out of trouble.
I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a really good point.
And if you do hit the report error in the MLS, it goes to Lisa. She gets notified that that error has been reported.
Yeah.
So so she does see that, not who reported it, but
Right.
that there was an error reported at
Mhm.
that point in time.
Yeah.
So and in that way
Okay.
you have notified the broker, and the broker is supposed to be following up with their agents to make sure that they're correcting it.
Yeah, and I can also go in and make any changes on anybody's listing because they're all considered, my listings. So
Got
if it's something like that, I don't have any problem going in and changing it. I don't want to make that a general habit because I don't want people call me all the time to make
be their
changes,
to be their admin.
Yeah, but I never mind helping you all if you're unavailable and you need and you've noticed a problem, call me and I'll try to help you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Speaking of how things get reported in the MLS, when you are the buyer's agent, always check that listing after it closes.
Mhm.
Common mistake because of the fact that it says selling agent where the buyer's agent's name has to go. Many agents put their
Larry.
own
Yeah.
name there.
We had that conversation the other day. Yeah.
It happens, right?
Yeah.
They and they put themselves in there, and they get the credit in the MLS as you know, a double dip kind of thing. And it's
statistics, but yeah.
it's a mistake. But if it's important to you that you get credit for that sale, that you use that in your marketing or anything like that, then you need to, after it closes, go in and check. The thing is, I always out of courtesy, contacted the other agent and said, hey, you need to take care of this, because once a property closes in the MLS, nobody but the MLS can go in and change the information there. It's locked down. So that other agent who made the mistake has to fill out a form. Their broker has to sign it, and it has to go down to the MLS to be changed. And they can sometimes drag their feet about that. So I would give them that courtesy call, and I would make a note to myself to follow up in a few days and see if they had fixed it. And if they hadn't, then I reported that error. And then the MLS would take care of following up with them and getting that fixed.
Yeah. One of the things I do just for my own person, because we get in a hurry at the end, especially when you're closing a file out. So what I would do just for my own prompting is the old school way, I'd have a status form in my file or somewhere, and I'd put that information in there so that I had it right in front of me, or even on a scrap piece of paper somewhere. I still have a paper file, guys, too. I just always do. Just so you have the information, the buyer side information available.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The other thing, I think to talk about files next week, but don't forget the dot loop and command files belong to the broker. Those are not your files. And one of the things we get all the time is agents that have left the company and then want us to send them copies of their files. Not going to happen. It's your responsibility to back your data up and have your own files separate from ours. Anything you do turn into dot loop is the property of the brokerage.
Yeah.
And command as well.
That is the broker's file. You have to have your own, and then you have to keep it for 5 years, or a rejected offer for 1 year.
Yeah, and you have to turn in rejected offers to us also. One thing that
Pro tip.
I'm sorry.
Pro tip: when you guys close your dot loop files, select all the documents in your dot loop and download them into a single document. Upload that into some kind of online suppository, and you'll be good to go.
Guess what? You're good. Yeah. Yeah, and with command, having DocuSign as a separate entity basically will help with that, because once you put it into command, we got Sotelo in the room. Once you put it in there, you're gonna always have another set of documents in DocuSign, and then you have to upload into command. So you should always have your own set at that point.
Yeah, another pro tip. All of us get free Google Drive space with our KW email addresses, and it's unlimited storage. Use that if you don't want to use a personal one. So there you go. Make use of it. It's awesome.
Thanks, Jesse. Wow, we're losing people right and left.
Sorry.
We're bored them to death.
Hi,
Teresa.
Okay. I had to run across town and get a wet signature for a buyer. Her husband did the electronic signature. And he's out of town, and her computer's been messing up. Anyway, long story short, I ran across town and got it. I scanned it in. So it's going to look a little wonky because it's got his electronic signature and her wet signature, and I had just signed with her today where we're together. I scanned it. So now, do you want the wire fraud and the market conditions too, or just the buyer broker and agent?
Wire fraud is required. Market conditions does not. Just look at that checklist that you have.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'll be sending them over shortly. Yeah. Just I can just share them with Dot, right? I just share it for you with Dot.
No, you need to upload. No. You need to. Do you need my signature?
Yes, for the buyer our initials on the buyer broker agreement, right?
Okay. Yeah, and you need to make sure that don't forget that it has to be signed within 10 days. So when you get that in the beginning, make sure that you get that over right away.
Yeah. He signed it on the second.
I prefer you don't share them. I prefer that you send them for signature to the KWSA broker at gmail.com. Because if you just share them into my personal dot loop, I may never see them.
Okay. All right. So it's KW.
kwsabroker@gmail.com.
Okay. And I do that before I share it then. Okay.
Yeah, and please don't share it.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah. The other thing, when you are doing your files in .loop, you do not need to add me to your files. Then I just get I get 2 copies of everything then, because as admins we get copies anyway. We get copied on stuff. So when you then add me as a separate one, not only do I get a whole file in my .loop, I get 2 copies of everything. So
Okay. Okay.
not ideal.
In next week's class, we're not going to get really deep into .loop and all the interesting things I'm learning about .loop quickly, because we will be making a shift here to command.
Yep.
Lisa is working on getting that all buttoned up so that we can make that shift. So rather than spending a lot of time training on .loop, that doesn't just make sense at this particular time.
Mhm.
But you know, if you do have questions that I don't know, because I've been learning over the last couple of weeks the system, I will get back to you and get you that answer.
Yeah, we
Okay,
probably will be shifting to command in third quarter. I was trying to avoid doing it right in the middle of COVID and the shutdown. I figured why add one more burden to your list of things to do. But I do want to do it before the end of the year, so it's not right at the end of the year also, because then it again adds another burden to you. So I'll probably we'll probably start transitioning over in July, August area, and be fully functional by the end of the year.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else from anybody?
Yeah, just to tag what you were just saying, just reminder, because it just hit me. I'm like, oh wait, July, August, we're talking 30 to 45 days here.
It's not far.
3
Yeah.
months down the road.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like more of an imminent thing than it really,
Yeah.
you know, to get everybody aware that it's time to start thinking in that direction.
And I'm going to give you guys 90 full days to transition over. So once I say it starts now, you'll have 90 days before we cut you off from .loop. That should give anybody plenty of time to even if they're a procrastinator, that should give them plenty of time to get all their stuff switched over.
So are you saying for 90 days, Nancy and I are going to be in both systems?
You betcha.
Oh, I'm excited.
Well, and even
about
longer
that.
than that, because things that are closing in .loop, I'm not going to make, if they're in escrow and closing soon, I'm not going to make them transition that file over. So for a period of time, you'll be in both systems, probably 6 months or so.
Yay!
Gotta love your job. Yeah. It's all good. You know, I mean, I think we've worked out a lot of the kinks of command. There's so many benefits to it. It's going to outweigh the struggle we have on the broker side. The consumer side and the agent side is pretty fully functional now. The brokerage side is where we're lacking a little bit of flexibility. And I can't keep punishing you all for the things that's going to punish us. So we're going to have to make that switch over.
So, note to self, if you haven't transitioned over any of your files from .loop for your personal files, you should probably do it before we go to command, right?
Yeah, or just start working on your database, start working on your opportunities, anything that you can do in command, just become very familiar with that part of it. And then, yeah, you don't have to switch anything over at this point, but I would start entering all of your new data into that.
Okay.
So that's a quick question I have then is, you know, we talked about this when we were first going to do the transition. Will stuff that's in .loop that's active somehow be copied over to command?
Yes.
That's like a data transfer. I think we moved 1 million files or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. API Nation, we're going to contract with them to do that. Again, we won't be backing up your personal data. So if you want a copy of that, you're going to need to download your files onto your system or your backup. But we will do a gigantic, shift and purge of information. And then we'll also back up all those files so that because as brokers, we have to have access if we get audited for 5 years. ADRE could ask for any one of those files. So I have to have access to that. And we will not have access to .loop after that. So there's where the problem is going to be too, is that we can't, if you need to get back into .loop or something, you won't have accessibility unless you pay them. You can continue to use .loop as your like your CRM, I guess it wasn't even a CRM, but as your document prep folder or whatever, and then upload to Command. But it's not really necessary because DocuSign is free and it works really well once you get a handle on it. So whatever your comfort level is. When we first started the Command, switch it over, Dotloop was not an option to continue as something that came for.
And you're talking about that you could keep your Dotloop account so that you could keep the electronic signing
Correct,
capabilities
right,
in it.
and your copies, but you would still need to, for compliance purposes, you would still need to upload every document into Command. So
And Command has a built-in electronic signing program.
well, it's DocuSign. It's not built in. It's an accessory to it.
And,
Yeah,
but it's provided to them.
free.
Yeah.
And it's a little more robust in some areas.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, guys. It's a super cool system.
Mhm.
I can't wait for us to start using it.
Yeah. And Jesse's much more well versed in it than I am. But I think it's well worth taking the time to investigate that and all the ability that it has, flexibility.
I just want to sit next to Jesse 24/7 for a while so I can learn as much about Command as he
Yeah. Well,
does.
he teaches classes every week, so take advantage of that. We'll probably ramp that up a little bit more once we start getting closer to the transition. And
Yeah, Jesse, you teach every Tuesday, is it?
Yeah, every Tuesday at 1 p.m. I have a Command Like a Boss. And we cover various portions of Command. I was talking to Jay last week about doing a boot camp for everyone that needs help from square one. So yeah, we'll need to do that. And the only way we can and the only way that we can make that actually work really well is if we take advantage of the time. Everybody will need to know at least how to navigate and enter in clients into Command. It's required in order for an opportunity to be created and stuff like that. So yeah, it gets really big, really fast. So yeah, I'll be in contact with everybody as soon as I have a particular time when that boot camp can happen.
right, and that's when we as monitors will have to ask you to excuse yourself from the class or however we decide to teach it, because we can't hold back everybody else if people need remedial help on that. Yeah, and that's why I want to cover at least the basics so that everybody can at least do that. Yeah. So yeah, I got an idea for it, but yeah, we want to maximize the use of Command, and it's going to be mandatory anyway, so why not? Yeah, and change is difficult, or any kind of transition is difficult. We understand that, especially for old people like me. We still like, we get comfortable in with something that works for us, but we have to keep moving forward, guys. We got to do it. So got to bite the bullet and move forward. Yeah, we don't want to end up like Nokia, right? They were the leading mobile communication company in the world, and they didn't make any changes. They didn't do anything wrong. They just kept doing things status quo, and then all of a sudden they're no longer part of the whole landscape. So it's a big deal. We got Big Jay in the room. What's up, Jay?
What's up, guys?
We're done in 2 more minutes. So
Hey,
GDV?
you see my post on the lead thing? This kid just getting better. It's craziness.
No, I've been working.
Yeah, we haven't been on Facebook. We've been here.
Jesse, man, my campaign that I ran for one of our agents is killing it. Killing it. Nice. It's it's already it's less than half a day, and it's already developed 7 leads for less than $2.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I love hearing that stuff.
Yeah, good job. Good job.
And I posted a new development here with the Command stuff. So guys, go over to Keller Williams Southern Arizona Technology Facebook page and check out that article that I just posted. I think a lot of you will be happy about it.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. Anything else for anybody? Lisa, you got anything else for us? Dan? Anybody?
Thank you all for joining us. I appreciate it. I've had to miss the last couple of times, and thank God I've got a good backup system here. But thank you all. It's nice to see your faces, and I can't wait till you're all back in the office again soon.
Bye.
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 Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.